By 333 BC, Alexander the Great has carved a violent path through Asia Minor. In a matter of months, his Macedonian forces have severely bled the western territories of the Persian Empire, securing critical coastal hubs and pushing into the interior. The Persian King of Kings, Darius III, refuses to let this invasion continue. In Babylon, Darius assembles a massive royal army of approximately 100,000 men, intending to march west and personally crush the Macedonian king. This macro map reveals a brilliant strategic countermove by Darius. While Alexander marches south, expecting a frontal fight at the Syrian gates, Darius slips his army north through the Ammonic Gate, a mountain pass that allows the Persians to loop entirely behind Alexander's position. Emerging in the rear, the Persians capture the town of Issus and find the sick and wounded Macedonian soldiers Alexander had left to recover. In a brutal display of psychological warfare, Darius orders his men to sever the hands of every wounded Macedonian in the camp. This creates an immediate strategic crisis. Alexander is completely cut off, outplayed on the map. He must now win a tactical miracle, or his campaign ends here. Realizing the Persians have blocked his retreat, Alexander forces his entire army into a desperate countermarch back north. He has to meet the Persian threat before Darius consolidates his hold on the coastal passes. This topographical map shows the terrain of the Pineios River Valley. It is a narrow coastal plain bordered by the Mediterranean Sea on one side and steep mountains on the other. The gap between the water and the rock is barely 2 miles wide. This 2-mile funnel is Darius's fatal flaw. The Persian king cannot deploy his 100,000 troops to flank Alexander's 40,000 men. The bottleneck neutralizes his sheer numbers. Geography forces a head-on collision. Shock power and real-time command decisions will dictate the victor. This map shows the Macedonian deployment. Parmenion commands the defensive left flank by the sea. The center is held by the phalanx, dense blocks of infantry armed with 20-foot spears called sarissas. Alexander takes personal command of the right flank, leading the elite companion cavalry. Darius opens the battle by massing his heavy cavalry on the beach. They surge across the river to overwhelm Parmenion's left flank, pinning the Macedonians down under immense numerical pressure. In the center, the fight becomes a brutal slog. The Macedonian phalanx suffers heavy casualties as they scale the steep, slippery banks of the Pineios while under a constant barrage of Persian arrow fire. Darius employs thousands of heavily armored Greek mercenaries in his center line. These mercenaries exploit the rough terrain to fracture the rigid Macedonian phalanx, pushing the invaders back toward the river. The situation is dire. His army fractures in the center and buckles on the left. Total collapse is imminent. Alexander is on a ticking clock. He must force a massive shift in momentum before Parmenion's flank breaks entirely. Leading a wedge of his companion cavalry, Alexander surges across the river and shatters the Persian left wing in an instant. Alexander executes a critical pivot, wheeling his cavalry inward to strike the newly exposed flank of the Persian center. Through the chaos of the melee, Alexander locks eyes with King Darius in his royal chariot. He launches a direct, aggressive charge through the royal bodyguard, aiming straight for the Persian monarch. Seeing the Macedonian strike force barreling toward him, Darius panics. He abandons his chariot and flees the battlefield to save his own life. The flight of the king triggers a domino effect. Even the Persian cavalry winning on the beach watch their leader run. They lose their nerve and break into a total rout. The Macedonian victory came through psychological collapse rather than total attrition. When the king fled, the cohesion of the entire 100,000-man force dissolved instantly. As daylight fades, the battle ends in slaughter. The Macedonian cavalry pursues the fleeing Persians into the bark, killing thousands as they scramble into the mountains. The Macedonians capture the Persian royal camp, which includes Darius's mother, wife, and daughters. Alexander treats the captured women with respect, protecting them from the chaos of the victory. Entering Darius's personal tent, the Macedonians experience a profound sensory shock. They find themselves surrounded by luxuries they have never seen: solid gold bathtubs, intricate golden caskets, and staggering physical wealth. Surveying the opulent tent prepared by royal pages, Alexander turns to his closest commanders and says, "This, as it would seem, is to be a king." Alexander's victory at Issus shattered the geopolitical mystique of the great king. He annexed the western half of the empire and opened the gates for the total conquest of Asia.